Hey friends, I hope that you are doing well today. I have something I want to show you. It was a gift from a friend of mine, and it is this. This is a piece of wood. What does it look like? Well, actually, on this piece of wood, it says a bald-headed man's hairbrush. Now again, I must remind you, this was a gift from a friend. So, a hairbrush usually has bristles on it, right? Things that we can comb our hair with. So I have a bald-headed man's hairbrush. Do you get it? A bald-headed man's hairbrush? I don't get it. Well, did you ever hear the phrase, making it by a hair, or by a whisker, or by an eyelash? You might have heard someone say, we got on our airplane flight just by a hair because they were getting ready to close the gates. Or a car race. The race was neck and neck to the very end, but Richard Petty won it by a hair. Well, it's been a long time since Richard Petty won a race, but sometimes he won a race just by the hair. So by a hair refers to getting somewhere or finishing something by an extremely short or close margin. Very narrow by a small distance or amount. You could say, you know what? He missed sideswiping that car by a hair. Or in baseball, that ball was a strike, but just by a whisker. So this phrase of a single hair, an eyelash, or a whisker alludes to this part of us, the hair, hair, the eyelash or the whisker, and they are so fine. I could be holding one here and you might not even see it. That's how thin they are and how fragile. But in our hair, our eyelash or our whisker, we can find our DNA, the identifying marks of who we are. So, saying that we made it by a hair refers to a close call. Did you ever have a close call? Well, perhaps you didn't, and maybe you didn't even know it. It reminds me of the story of David in the Old Testament. Before David became king, there was a King Saul, and David and King Saul didn't always get along. And in 1 Samuel chapter 24, we read a story that is pretty interesting, where David had the opportunity to harm King Saul, but he chose not to. And it's fascinating. David was hiding in a cave, and King Saul came into the cave to do some other things. And while he was occupied or preoccupied, David actually cut off a piece of Saul's clothing. That's how close he could get to him. And Saul never saw him. Well, later, David was able to tell King Saul about that close call. He was able to tell King Saul he had a close call. Hey, I'm a poet and I didn't know it. You know, in 1 Samuel 24:10, it says, David says to King Saul, "This day you have seen with your own eyes how the Lord handed you over to me in the cave. Some of my men begged me to kill you, but I didn't. I said, I will never lay my hand on my master. He is the Lord's anointed king." King Saul had a close call. Another story from David about David, King David, was when a woman named Abigail intervened in his plans. Again, David was not yet king. This is found in 1 Samuel 25, and David was planning to do some harm to a group of people, and Abigail intervened in his plans. And David said to Abigail in 1 Samuel 25, "Give praise to the Lord, for he is the God of Israel, and he has sent you today to find me. May the Lord bless you for what you have done. You have shown good sense. You have kept me from killing Nabal and his men today. You have kept me from using my own hands to get even. It's a good thing you came quickly to meet me. If you hadn't come, not one of Nabal's men would have been left alive by sunrise. And that's just as sure as the Lord, the God of Israel, is alive. He has kept me from harming you." So Abigail had a close call. David had a close call. We could say that they got by the hair or by a whisker or by an eyelash. You know, in our lives, we may never know what might have happened if not for the intervention of others used by God. We might have had times where we were saved by a hair and we didn't even know it. We need to trust God and trust these words that God has left for us from Romans 8:28. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. He appointed them to be saved in keeping with his purpose. God is at work in all of our lives. Whether we are saved by a hair, by a whisker, an eyelash, or whether it's something that we can see clearly what has happened, we trust God in working in our lives. I need to remember who my friend was who gave me this hairbrush, because there's some pieces missing. I definitely am not being saved by a hair. You have a great day, a day that's filled with joy, and a day that's filled with peace.